The massive alien ship hung in space, like a dark mountain against the stars. Admiral Zexstar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the stellar destroyer Vorthik, watching the small blue planets slowly turn beneath them. Earth looked so peaceful. From this distance, so completely unaware of what was about to happen. Zexstar's yellow eyes gleamed with satisfaction as he studied the tactical display showing his fleet. 800 ships spread across the solar system like a net of death and destruction. Each vessel was larger than anything the humans had ever built. The alien commander had done this dance 1,000 times before with 1,000 different worlds. "Admiral, the initial scans are complete," reported his second-in-command, Commander Valkoth, his scaled green skin reflecting the bridge lights. "The planet shows typical signs of a developing civilization. Basic nuclear technology, primitive spaceflight, simple communication networks. Nothing that poses any threat to our forces." The Admiral nodded slowly, his long fingers drumming against the command chair. This was exactly what the Galactic Dominion intelligence had predicted. Earth was just another backward world, ripe for conquest and integration into the Empire. The humans would join the thousands of other species that served the Dominion, whether they wanted to or not. "Have our scientists finished their analysis of the human military capabilities?" Zexstar asked, though he already knew the answer would not be impressive. "Yes, sir. They possess crude kinetic weapons, basic energy shields on their larger vessels, and what appears to be early fusion technology. Their largest military vessel is roughly the size of one of our escort frigates. The humans present no significant military challenge." Zexstar allowed himself a moment of amusement. The human species was particularly young, having only achieved spaceflight in the last century. Most civilizations that joined the Dominion had at least a few thousand years of technological development behind them. Humans were barely out of their planetary cradle. "Excellent. Begin the standard intimidation protocol," the Admiral commanded. "Broadcast our terms of surrender to their major population centers. Make sure they understand that resistance will only bring them pain and suffering." On the far side of the solar system, hidden behind the massive bulk of Jupiter, Captain Jake Morrison received the alien transmission at Earth's orbital defense station. The message came through in perfect English, which somehow made it even more terrifying. The aliens had been watching and learning about humanity for quite some time. Morrison was a tall man with gray hair and deep lines around his eyes from years of staring into the darkness of space. He had spent 30 years in Earth's Defense Corps, working his way up from a simple maintenance technician to command of the most important military installation in human space. The alien message was simple and direct. Surrender completely within 24 hours or watch their world burn. Submit to Galactic Dominion rule and become productive members of the Empire, or face total destruction. It was the same choice the aliens had given to every other species they had encountered. "Sir, we're receiving similar transmissions at all major cities on Earth," reported Lieutenant Amy Brooks from her position at the communications console. She was young, barely 25, but she had proven herself to be one of the best communication specialists in the fleet. "The aliens are broadcasting on every frequency we use. They want to make sure everyone gets the message." Morrison studied the tactical display that showed the massive alien fleet. The numbers were overwhelming. 800 ships against humanity's 12 operational defense vessels and 36 fighters. On paper, it looked like the most one-sided battle in galactic history. But Captain Morrison knew something the aliens did not. The small fleet they could see was not the total extent of human military power. It was barely even the beginning. "Amy, send a priority transmission to Command Center Alpha," Morrison ordered, his voice calm despite the magnitude of what he was about to set in motion. "Tell them the guests have arrived early, and we need to implement Protocol 7 immediately." Protocol 7 was humanity's most closely guarded secret. For 30 years, ever since the first alien probe had been detected at the edge of the solar system, Earth's scientists and engineers had been preparing for exactly this moment. They had known this day would come, and they had used every second to get ready. While the aliens saw primitive human technology on the surface, they had missed the massive construction projects hidden throughout the outer solar system. They had not detected the research stations built inside asteroids, or the weapon testing facilities concealed behind the moons of distant planets. Brooks' fingers moved quickly across her control panel as she sent the coded message. Within minutes, responses began coming back from locations the aliens had never detected. Hidden bases, secret research facilities, and construction yards that had been operating in complete radio silence for decades. Message sent and confirmed, sir. Brooks reported. All stations acknowledge Protocol 7 activation. Morrison nodded and turned his attention back to the alien fleet. Admiral Zextar and his commanders thought they were dealing with a simple, primitive species that would surrender without a fight. They had made the same assumption about every other world they had conquered. But humans were different in ways the Galactic Dominion could not imagine. Where other species had developed gradually over thousands of years, humans had compressed centuries of technological advancement into mere decades. They had not had the luxury of slow, peaceful development. They had always known that something dangerous was coming from the stars. On Earth's surface, Dr. Helen Carter received the Protocol 7 activation notice in her laboratory, buried 3 miles beneath the Rocky Mountains. She had spent her entire adult life working on projects that officially did not exist, developing technologies that pushed the boundaries of known physics. Carter was a small woman with short brown hair and intense blue eyes that seemed to see right through whatever she was looking at. She had 3 advanced degrees in theoretical physics and had spent the last 15 years turning impossible theories into working reality. All teams, this is not a drill, she announced over the laboratory's communication system. Protocol 7 is now active. Begin final preparations for Project Retribution. Project Retribution was humanity's answer to the alien threat. Hidden in the asteroid belt, concealed by stealth technology that made it invisible to alien sensors, was humanity's greatest achievement. A single warship that represented everything humans had learned about war, technology, and survival. The ship had been built using materials and techniques that the Galactic Dominion had never seen before. Where alien vessels relied on energy shields and plasma weapons, the human ship used technologies based on dimensional manipulation and controlled fusion reactions that could tear holes in space itself. Back on the Vorthok, Admiral Zextar grew impatient as the human deadline approached. No response had come from Earth's governments. No surrender, no desperate attempts at negotiation, nothing but silence. Sir, we have detected some unusual energy readings from the outer solar system, reported sensor operator Crickstell, his voice uncertain. The patterns do not match anything in our database. Probably just human industrial activity, Zextar dismissed with a wave of his hand. Primitive civilizations often increase their manufacturing when faced with conquest. They think they can build enough weapons to make a difference. But deep in his mind, something bothered the Admiral. In all his years of conquest, he had never encountered a species that simply ignored the Dominion's ultimatum. Every other civilization had responded in some way, whether with surrender, negotiation, or desperate threats. The human silence was unlike anything he had experienced. Sir, the deadline has passed, Commander Velkoth reported. Should we begin the bombardment? Zextar considered his options. Standard procedure called for the systematic destruction of military targets, followed by orbital bombardment of major population centers until the planet surrendered. It was a process that rarely took more than a few hours. Begin with their orbital installations, he ordered. "Destroy their defense stations and any military vessels. Then we'll see if the humans are ready to be more reasonable." The alien fleet began to move toward Earth, weapons charging and shields activated. 800 ships against a handful of human defenders. It should have been the shortest conquest in Galactic Dominion history. But as the first alien weapons fired, something impossible happened. A massive energy signature suddenly appeared on every sensor in the solar system, coming from a direction where nothing should have existed. Admiral Zexstar stared at his tactical display in complete shock as a ship larger than his own flagship materialized out of empty space, its hull bristling with weapons unlike anything the Galactic Empire had ever seen. The bridge of the Vorthic fell silent as every alien eye stared at the main display screen. Where empty space had existed moments before, a massive human warship now hung like a dark predator among the stars. The vessel was enormous, nearly as large as Admiral Zexstar's own flagship, but its design was completely unlike anything in the Galactic Dominion database. "That is impossible," whispered Commander Velkoff, his scaled hands gripping the edge of his control station. "Our intelligence reports clearly stated that humans cannot build ships larger than escort frigates. They barely have faster-than-light travel." Admiral Zexstar stared at the human vessel with growing unease. The ship's hull was black as space, itself covered in angular armor plating that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Strange energy patterns flickered along its surface, and weapon ports lined its sides like the teeth of some ancient beast. Sensor Officer Krickstall ran a full scan of that vessel immediately. Zexstar commanded, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. "I want to know everything about it. Size, weapons, crew, power source, everything." Krickstall's tentacles moved quickly across his scanning equipment, but the readings made no sense. "Sir, the scans are showing conflicting data. The ship appears to be approximately 2 kilometers in length, but its mass readings suggest it should be much smaller. The hull composition is unknown, and the energy signature is unlike anything we have encountered before." The human ship slowly turned toward the Galactic Dominion fleet, its movement precise and controlled despite its massive size. Strange blue lights began to glow along its weapon arrays, and the space around it seemed to shimmer with barely contained power. "Admiral, we are receiving a transmission from the human vessel," reported Communications Officer Velinex, his voice filled with disbelief. "They are broadcasting on our secure military frequencies. Somehow they have broken our encryption codes." "Put it through," Zexstar ordered, though every instinct told him this situation was spinning far beyond his control. The bridge speakers crackled to life, and a clear human voice filled the command center. "Galactic Dominion Fleet, this is Admiral Lisa Kane of the United Earthship Retribution. You have violated Earth space and threatened the sovereignty of humanity. You have one opportunity to withdraw peacefully. This is your only warning." "Admiral." Kane's voice was calm and steady, showing no fear despite facing odds of 800 ships to 1. On the bridge of the Retribution, she stood with her hands clasped behind her back, watching the alien fleet through her own tactical display. Kane was a woman in her 50s with short gray hair and sharp green eyes that missed nothing. She had spent her entire military career preparing for this moment, rising through the ranks of Earth's secret defense projects. She had overseen the construction of humanity's greatest weapon, and now commanded the most advanced warship ever built by Vil. "Human hands." "All stations report ready, Admiral," called out Commander Pete Jackson from the tactical station. Jackson was a broad-shouldered man with dark skin and steady hands that never shook, even in the most dangerous situations. "All weapon systems are online and charged to full power. Defensive grids are active and ready." Kane nodded slowly, her eyes never leaving the display showing the massive alien fleet. The Galactic Dominion ships were moving into attack formation, clearly intending to destroy the Retribution through overwhelming firepower. It was exactly what humanity had expected them to do. "Maintain position," Kane ordered. "Let them come. To us, we want them to see exactly what they're dealing with before this begins." On the Vorthik, Admiral Zextar felt his confidence returning as he studied the tactical situation. One ship, no matter how large or unusual, could not possibly stand against his entire fleet. The humans were either insane or desperately bluffing. "All ships, assume attack formation Beta 7, he commanded through the fleet communication system. "Target the human vessel with everything we have. I want it reduced to space dust within the next 10 minutes. The Dominion fleet began to spread out in a massive arc, surrounding the lone human ship from all sides. Hundreds of weapons turned toward the Retribution, preparing to unleash enough firepower to destroy a small moon. But engineer Sarah Banks was watching the alien movements from her station deep within the Retribution's armored core. Banks was a small woman with brown hair tied back in a practical ponytail, but her mind contained more knowledge about advanced physics than most entire university science departments. "Admiral, they're moving exactly as we predicted," Banks reported. "Through the internal communication system, all ships are positioning themselves within optimal range for the surprise." The surprise was humanity's greatest secret weapon, something the aliens could not detect because they had never encountered anything like it before. Hidden throughout the Retribution's hull were thousands of small objects that appeared to be nothing more than maintenance panels or sensor arrays. "Launch the drones," Admiral Kane ordered quietly. From concealed bays all along the massive human ship, thousands of small objects began to emerge. To the alien sensors, they looked like debris or perhaps escape pods being jettisoned from a damaged vessel. The Dominion fleet paid them little attention as the tiny objects spread throughout the battle space. "What are those things?" asked Commander Velkoth, pointing at the clouds of small objects now drifting between the fleets. "Probably lifeboats," Admiral Zextar replied dismissively. "The humans must realize they cannot win this battle. They are abandoning ship before we destroy it." But Lieutenant Commander Roy Shun, the Retribution's navigation officer, was tracking every single drone through his control systems. Chun was a quiet man with black hair and careful eyes who had spent years perfecting the complex mathematics needed to coordinate the massive drone swarm. Each drone was smaller than a human fighter craft, but contained a miniaturized fusion reactor and enough concentrated firepower to seriously damage a Dominion cruiser. They were completely invisible to alien sensors until activated, using stealth technology that humanity had developed specifically for this battle. "Drones are in optimal position," Sean reported. "All units report ready and awaiting activation." Codes. Admiral Kane watched as the alien fleet moved closer, their weapons charging and shields activating. The Galactic Dominion commanders were completely focused on the massive human ship in front of them, never imagining that the real threat was the thousands of tiny objects they had dismissed as unimportant. "Sir, the human vessel is not moving." "To escape," reported Sensor Officer Krickstall with confusion in his voice. "They are maintaining position and appear to be charging their own weapons." Admiral Zextar laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the Vorthix bridge. "Of course they are not running. They have nowhere to go. One ship cannot escape from 800, no matter how fast it might be." The lead elements of the Dominion fleet were now within optimal firing range of the Retribution. Energy weapons began to charge to full power, and targeting systems locked on to the human vessel. In moments, the battle would begin and end with the complete destruction of humanity's greatest ship. "All ships, fire at will," Admiral Zextar commanded. "Destroy that vessel and show these humans the price of defying the Galactic Dominion." Hundreds of energy beams and plasma bolts screamed across space toward the Retribution. The concentrated firepower was enough to vaporize an asteroid or crack the surface of a small planet. No single ship could possibly survive such an assault. Admiral Kane stood calmly on her bridge, watching the incoming weapons fire with no trace of fear or concern. She had spent years preparing for this exact moment, and she knew something the aliens did not. "Activate all defensive systems," she ordered quietly. "And Chun, execute drone activation protocol on my mark." The first alien weapons struck the Retribution's shields, and the human ship disappeared in a brilliant explosion of light and energy. For a moment, it seemed as though the Galactic Dominion had achieved another easy victory. Then the light faded, and the Retribution emerged completely, undamaged, its shields glowing with absorbed energy that was being converted into power for its own weapons. "Impossible," breathed Admiral Zextar, staring at his display in complete shock. "Nothing can survive that much concentrated firepower." Admiral Kane smiled coldly as she watched the alien fleet's confusion and growing fear. "Now they learn what human engineering can accomplish," she said quietly. "Chun, activate the drones. Show them what a real surprise looks like." The space around the Retribution suddenly erupted into thousands of brilliant explosions as the hidden drone swarm came to life. Each small device that the aliens had dismissed as harmless debris now revealed itself to be a deadly weapon, targeting the Dominion fighters with devastating precision. Admiral Zextar watched in horror as entire squadrons of his best pilots simply vanished from the tactical display. The small human drones moved with impossible speed and accuracy, striking his ships faster than his gunners could respond. Each explosion marked the death of another fighter craft and its crew. "How is this possible?" Zextar demanded, his voice rising to a shout. "Our intelligence reports said humans barely understand fusion technology. These weapons are more advanced than anything in our arsenal." On the bridge of the Retribution, Lieutenant Commander Roy Chun monitored the drone attack with calm satisfaction. Each small weapon was controlled by artificial intelligence systems that humanity had spent decades perfecting. The drones could think and react faster than any living pilot, making split-second decisions that no organic brain could match. "First wave eliminated," Chun reported to Admiral Kane. "Enemy fighters destroyed, moving to secondary targets." The drones now turned their attention to the larger Dominion ships, swarming around the alien cruisers like angry insects. Their fusion-powered weapons cut through alien armor plating as if it were made of paper rather than advanced military alloys. Commander Velkoth stared at his sensor readings in complete disbelief. "Sir, our shields are having no effect against their weapons. The energy signatures are completely unknown. Our defensive systems cannot adapt to technology we have never encountered before." Admiral Kane stood calmly on her bridge, watching the destruction of the alien fleet with professional interest. The Retribution had been humanity's greatest secret for 30 years, built using technologies that pushed the very limits of known physics. Every system on the ship was designed to fight enemies exactly like the Galactic Dominion. "Commander Jackson, prepare the main weapon systems," Kane ordered. "It's time to show them what human engineering can really accomplish." Commander Pete Jackson's hands moved across his tactical controls with practiced precision. The Retribution's weapon arrays began to glow with an eerie blue light as massive amounts of energy flowed through systems that no alien scientist could understand. "Main cannon charging to full power," Jackson reported. "Target selected and locked. Ready to fire on your command, Admiral." The Retribution's primary weapon was humanity's greatest achievement in destructive technology. While alien civilizations had spent thousands of years perfecting energy weapons and plasma cannons, humans had approached the problem from a completely different angle. They had learned to manipulate the basic forces that held atoms together. Engineer Sarah Banks monitored the weapon's power systems from her position deep within the ship's core. The main cannon required more energy than most planets used in an entire year, but the Retribution's fusion reactors could provide that power without strain. All systems green, Banks reported. Reactor output at optimal levels. The cannon is ready to demonstrate what dimensional manipulation can do to enemy vessels. Admiral Zexstar tried desperately to regain control of the battle situation. His fleet was being torn apart by weapons he could not understand, and the human ship showed no signs of damage, despite absorbing the concentrated firepower of hundreds of vessels. All remaining ships, focus fire on that human vessel, he commanded. Every weapon, maximum power. We must destroy it before it can do more damage. The surviving Dominion ships turned their remaining weapons toward the Retribution, pouring energy into a sustained attack that should have melted the human ship down to its basic components. Plasma bolts and energy beams struck the vessels. Shields in a continuous barrage of destruction, but the Retribution's defensive systems were unlike anything the aliens had ever encountered. Instead of simply absorbing or deflecting the incoming energy, the human shields converted the alien weapons' fire into additional power for their own systems. Enemy weapons fire is being absorbed and converted, reported Chief Engineer Banks. Shield efficiency is actually increasing under sustained attack. Their weapons are making us stronger. Admiral Kane allowed herself a small smile. The irony was perfect. The Galactic Dominion's superior numbers and firepower were actually helping. The human ship became more dangerous with each passing moment. Commander Jackson, fire the main cannon, Kane ordered quietly. Target their largest vessel. Let's give Admiral Zexstar a demonstration he will never forget. The Retribution's main weapon fired for the first time in actual combat. A beam of pure energy, focused through dimensional manipulation technology, reached across space faster than light itself. The beam struck the Dominion flagship Vorthik exactly in its center, where the ship's main reactor was located. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the massive alien vessel simply ceased to exist. There was no explosion, no debris field, no trace that it had ever been there. The concentrated energy had torn the ship apart at the atomic level, reducing it to its basic particles in a fraction of a second. The entire Galactic Dominion fleet stopped firing. Every alien on every ship stared at the empty space where their flagship had been moments before. Admiral Zexstar, his bridge crew, and 8,000 Dominion soldiers had simply vanished without a trace. Impossible, whispered Commander Velkoff from the bridge of his own cruiser, now the senior surviving officer of the entire fleet. No weapon can do that. Matter cannot simply disappear. But Dr. Helen Carter, watching the battle from her underground laboratory on Earth, knew exactly what had happened. She had spent 15 years developing the theoretical framework for the weapon that had just fired. Humanity had learned to tear holes in the fabric of space itself. Dimensional cascade successful, Carter reported to her team. Target eliminated with complete atomic dispersal. The weapon performed exactly as predicted. On the Retribution, Admiral Kane studied the tactical display showing the remaining alien ships. The destruction of their flagship had broken the Dominion fleet's will to fight. Ships were beginning to retreat, their crews too shocked to continue the battle. Admiral, we're receiving multiple surrender requests from the remaining enemy vessels, reported Communications Officer Brooks. They want to negotiate immediate cessation of hostilities. Kane considered the situation carefully. The Galactic Dominion had come to Earth expecting an easy conquest, but instead they had encountered technology that made their own weapons look primitive by comparison. The psychological impact was probably as important as the physical destruction. Open a channel to all remaining Dominion ships, Kane ordered. Let's see if they're ready to be more reasonable now. The view screen on every surviving alien vessel. showed Admiral Kane's calm face as she delivered humanity's response to their attempted conquest. Galactic Dominion forces, you came here to demand our surrender. Instead, you have learned that humanity is not as defenseless as you believed. Commander Velkov found his voice with great difficulty. Admiral Kane, we had no idea humans possessed such advanced technology. Our intelligence reports were clearly inadequate. Your intelligence reports showed you exactly what we wanted you to see, Kane replied calmly. While you were watching our civilian technology, we were developing weapons that your scientists cannot even understand. This is what happens when you threaten a species that has spent 30 years preparing for your arrival. The remaining Dominion ships hung motionless in space, their crews trying to comprehend what they had witnessed. A mighty galactic empire, conqueror of 3,000 worlds, had been defeated by a single human vessel using technology that seemed to violate the basic laws of physics. We are prepared to discuss terms, Velkoth said finally, his voice filled with newfound respect and fear. But the decision will have to come from the High Command. We no longer have the authority to negotiate on behalf of the Empire. Admiral. Kane nodded slowly. Then contact your High Command and tell them exactly what happened here today. Tell them that humanity is willing to talk, but the terms will be very different from what you originally offered us. As the battered remains of the Galactic Dominion fleet limped away from Earth space, the news of their defeat began to spread across the galaxy. For the first time in the Empire's long history, they had encountered a species that could not only resist their conquest, but could destroy their most advanced warships with ease. The age of easy galactic conquest was over, and humanity had announced its arrival as a major power in the most dramatic way possible. News of the defeat at Earth traveled faster than the surviving Dominion ships could return home. The Empire's communication network carried the impossible report across the galaxy within hours, reaching every major world and military command. Center.High Admiral Vex Ron stood in the Grand War Chamber on the Dominion capital world of Korth Prime, staring at the holographic display that showed the battle data from Earth. Around him, the most powerful military leaders in the galaxy watched in stunned silence as the recordings played over and over again. Play it again, Vex Ron commanded, his voice barely above a whisper. He was an ancient being, even by Dominion standards, having personally overseen the conquest of over 500 worlds during his long career. Nothing in his vast experience had prepared him for what he was seeing. The hologram showed the human ship appearing from nowhere, surviving the concentrated fire of 800 vessels, and then destroying the flagship Vorthik with a single shot that left no trace of the massive vessel. It was impossible, yet the evidence was undeniable. Sir, we have confirmed the authenticity of all sensor data, reported Science Advisor Kelenith, her multiple arms trembling as she manipulated the analysis controls. The recordings are genuine. The human vessel really did eliminate Admiral Zextar's flagship using an unknown energy weapon. General Korthvor, commander of the Dominion's ground forces, slammed his armored fist against the table. One ship? How does one ship destroy an entire battle fleet? Our intelligence said the humans were primitive savages barely capable of spaceflight. High Admiral Vexron studied the tactical analysis more carefully. The human strategy had been perfect from beginning to end. They had allowed the Dominion to see exactly what they wanted to see, hiding their true capabilities until the moment of attack. They planned this, he said slowly, understanding beginning to dawn in his ancient mind. The humans knew we were coming long before we arrived. They have been preparing for this battle for years, possibly decades. Minister Valfara of the Intelligence Division shifted nervously in her seat. She had been responsible for the assessment that Earth would be an easy conquest, and now her career was in ruins along with Admiral Zextar's fleet. High Admiral, our long-range sensors detected the alien probe that entered the Sol system 30 years ago, she admitted reluctantly. We assumed it was simply gathering routine intelligence on a primitive species. We never considered that the humans might reverse engineer our technology. On Earth, Dr. Helen Carter was conducting her own analysis of the battle in her underground laboratory. The weapon systems had performed beyond her highest expectations, but she knew this was only the beginning of humanity's emergence as a galactic power. The dimensional manipulation cannon exceeded all performance parameters, she reported to her research team. Complete atomic dispersal was achieved with minimal energy expenditure. The alien vessel was eliminated without creating any dangerous debris field. Carter was already thinking about the next phase of human expansion. The victory at Earth had proven that human technology could match or exceed anything the Galactic Dominion possessed. But there were surely other threats in the galaxy that would require different approaches. Lieutenant Colonel Mark Thompson, Earth's military liaison to the research project, studied the strategic implications of their success. Doctor, the aliens will not make the same mistake twice. When they return, they will bring more ships and different tactics. If they return, Carter corrected him. The psychological impact of this defeat may be more important than the military damage. The Galactic Dominion has never faced serious resistance before. They may not know how to adapt to a species that can fight back effectively. Meanwhile, on the Retribution, Admiral Kane was receiving reports from across the solar system. Hidden human facilities that had remained secret for decades were now revealing themselves, showing the true extent of humanity's military preparation. Admiral, we're getting status reports from all defense installations, Commander Jackson informed her. The asteroid mining facilities have been producing advanced materials for 20 years. The Jupiter shipyards have 12 more vessels under construction. The weapons testing range near Pluto has developed 6 different types of alien-killing technology. Kane nodded with satisfaction. The Retribution had been humanity's most visible achievement, but it was far from their only preparation for galactic war. Earth's scientists and engineers had used every available resource to develop weapons and defenses that no alien species could anticipate. What's the status of our intelligence-gathering operations? Kane asked. Excellent results, Admiral. The sensor arrays we planted on that Dominion probe 30 years ago are still transmitting data. We know the locations of their major military bases, their supply routes, and their command structure. We probably understand their own military better than they do. Back on Korath Prime, High Admiral Vex Ron was receiving similar reports about human capabilities, and each new piece of information made the situation worse. The species they had dismissed as primitive had somehow developed technology that surpassed the Empire's own research by centuries. Sir, our scientists have analyzed the energy signatures from the human weapons, reported Chief Science Officer Dex Mara. They appear to be using some form of controlled dimensional manipulation. Our current understanding of physics says such technology should be impossible. Apparently, our understanding is incomplete, Exron replied grimly. What other capabilities might the humans possess that we know nothing about? The question hung in the air like a death sentence. For the first time in the Empire's long history, they faced an enemy whose technology they could not understand or predict. Every assumption they had made about human limitations had proven to be wrong. Ambassador Silveska, the Empire's chief diplomat, spoke up from her position at the far end of the chamber. High Admiral, perhaps we should consider the possibility that military conquest of Earth is no longer a viable option. The humans have demonstrated clear technological superiority. General, Korthver bristled at the suggestion. Are you seriously proposing that the mighty Galactic Dominion negotiate with a species that barely learned to fly between stars a century ago? I am proposing that we negotiate with a species that just destroyed one of our most powerful fleets. Using weapons we cannot comprehend, Silveska replied calmly. Pride will not resurrect Admiral Zextar or his 8,000 dead soldiers. High Admiral Vexron considered the options carefully. The Empire's prestige was built on its reputation for invincibility. If word spread that they had been defeated by a supposedly primitive species, other worlds might begin to think that rebellion was possible, but the alternative was potentially worse. If humanity really did possess technology that could destroy Dominion fleets with ease, then continued military action might result in even greater losses. "What are the humans demanding?" he asked finally. "Complete withdrawal from their solar system and formal recognition of Earth as an independent sovereign state," Ambassador Silveska reported. "They also want to establish diplomatic relations with other species in the galaxy." Diplomatic relations? General Korthver laughed harshly. "They want to spread their dangerous ideas to our subject worlds. They want to teach other species that the Dominion can be defeated." High Admiral Vexron understood the real threat that humanity represented. It was not just their advanced weapons or superior technology. It was the idea that the Galactic Dominion was not invincible, that a determined species could resist conquest. "And win. Send a message to the human Admiral Kane," he ordered finally. "Tell her that the Dominion High Command is prepared to discuss terms. But make it clear that we are negotiating from a position of strength, not weakness." Ambassador Silveska bowed slightly. "Yes, High Admiral. What terms should I propose?" "Whatever terms will prevent them from sharing their technology with our enemies," Vexran replied grimly. "Whatever it takes to keep this defeat from inspiring system-wide rebellion." The message was transmitted to Earth within hours, carried by the Empire's fastest communication ships. For the first time in galactic history, the Dominion was requesting negotiations with a species they had intended to conquer. Admiral Kane received the message on the bridge of the Retribution, still maintaining position near Earth. The alien request for talks was exactly what humanity had hoped to achieve, but she knew the real work was just beginning. "Commander Jackson, what's our current strategic status?" she asked. "All human forces remain in full readiness. The aliens have withdrawn beyond the outer system boundary, but they're maintaining a significant fleet presence. They want to talk, but they're not ready to trust us completely." Kane smiled grimly. "Good. Neither are we. Begin preparations for the next phase of our expansion. If we're going to be a galactic power, we need to start acting like one." 3 weeks after the battle that shocked the galaxy, Ambassador Silveska arrived at Earth aboard a specially modified Dominion diplomatic vessel. The ship approached slowly, broadcasting peaceful intentions on every frequency, knowing that human weapons could destroy it before its crew could even react. Admiral Kane met the alien delegation at Luna Station, humanity's largest orbital facility near Earth's moon. The meeting place had been chosen carefully to demonstrate human industrial capability. Where the aliens expected to see primitive construction, they found advanced engineering that rivaled their own best facilities. The Dominion ambassador was a tall, elegant being with silver skin and 4 arms, representing one of the Empire's most ancient member species. She had negotiated treaties with hundreds of civilizations during her long career, but none of those meetings had taken place under such unusual circumstances. "Admiral Kane," Silveska said formally as she entered the conference room, "I bring greetings from High Admiral Vexron and the Dominion High Command. We are here to discuss a peaceful resolution to our recent misunderstanding." Kane studied the alien diplomat carefully. Even now, the Dominion was trying to minimize what had happened, calling the destruction of an entire fleet a simple misunderstanding. It showed how difficult it was for them to accept that they had been completely defeated. "Ambassador, there was no misunderstanding," Kane replied calmly. "Your empire came to Earth with the intention of forcing our surrender. We responded by demonstrating that humanity is not as helpless as you believed. The results speak for themselves." Captain Jake. Morrison sat beside Admiral Kane, representing Earth's military command. He had spent 30 years preparing for this moment, and now he was watching humanity take its place as an equal among the galactic powers. What exactly are the Dominion's terms for peace? Morrison asked directly. He was a soldier, not a diplomat, and he preferred straight answers to political dancing. Ambassador Silveska activated a holographic projector that displayed the proposed treaty terms. The Dominion is prepared to recognize Earth as an independent system, free from imperial control. In exchange, humanity must agree not to share its advanced weapons technology with other species. Admiral Kane almost smiled at the aliens' naivety. Did they really think humanity would agree to remain isolated while the Galactic Empire continued to oppress other worlds? The victory at Earth was meaningless if it did not lead to broader changes across the galaxy. That proposal is unacceptable. Kane stated firmly, "Humanity will not agree to limitations on our diplomatic or technological relationships with other species. We intend to take our place as a full participant in galactic civilization." The ambassador's forearms gestured in what humans had learned was a sign of distress among her species. The Dominion had hoped to contain the human threat by isolating Earth, but Kane was making it clear that would not work. "Admiral, you must understand the implications of what you are demanding," Silveska said urgently. "If other species learn that the Dominion can be defeated, it could lead to rebellion across hundreds of worlds. The stability of the entire galaxy could be at risk." Commander Pete Jackson, who had been monitoring communications during the meeting, spoke up from his position near the tactical displays. "Admiral, we're receiving messages from 17 different star systems. Species that have been under Dominion control are requesting information about our defensive technologies." Kane was not surprised. Word of humanity's victory had spread quickly through the galactic communication networks, and oppressed civilizations were beginning to hope that freedom might be possible. "You see, Ambassador, the galaxy is already changing," Kane observed. "The question is whether the Dominion will adapt to the new reality or continue to fight against it." Meanwhile, on distant worlds throughout the Empire, the news of Earth's victory was creating exactly the kind of unrest that High Admiral Vexron had feared. On the mining world of Kelter 4, the native population had stopped work and was demanding independence. On the agricultural planet Siren Prime, colonists were refusing to send food shipments to Dominion military bases. Dr. Helen Carter was monitoring these developments from her laboratory on Earth, analyzing the intelligence reports that human agents were gathering from across the galaxy. The victory at Earth had accomplished more than just defending humanity. It had inspired hope among species that had given up on freedom decades ago. "The psychological impact is exceeding our projections," she reported to Admiral Kane through secure communication channels. "Rebellion is spreading faster than the Dominion can respond to it. Their entire control structure is beginning to collapse." Back at Luna Station, Ambassador Silveska was receiving similar reports from her own government. The Empire's military forces were being stretched thin as they tried to maintain order on hundreds of worlds simultaneously. "Admiral Kane, perhaps we can reach a compromise," the ambassador said desperately. "The Dominion is prepared to grant independence to any world that requests it peacefully. In exchange, we ask only that you not actively encourage rebellion against imperial authority." Kane considered the proposal carefully. It was more than humanity had originally hoped to achieve, but she suspected it was not the final offer the aliens would make. "We need more than promises, Ambassador. We need concrete action. The Dominion must begin immediately releasing all species that wish to govern themselves. And there must be guarantees that no retaliation will be taken against worlds that choose independence." The negotiations continued for hours, with both sides carefully probing for advantages. But the fundamental reality was clear. Humanity held all the important cards in this discussion. Lieutenant Amy Brooks, who had been present at the first alien contact, watched the proceedings with amazement. 3 weeks ago, Earth had been facing destruction by an overwhelming enemy force. Now that same enemy was begging for peace and offering concessions that would reshape the entire galaxy. As the diplomatic talks proceeded, reports continued to arrive from across the Empire. The Kelter system had declared independence and was successfully defending itself against Dominion forces. The Siren Federation had formed an alliance of 12 agricultural worlds and was demanding representation in galactic government. Admiral, Commander Jackson reported quietly, "We're getting requests for military assistance from 43 different star systems. They want human weapons and training to defend their independence movements." Kane nodded thoughtfully. This was the moment humanity had to decide what kind of galactic power it wanted to become. They could simply secure Earth's safety and ignore the suffering of other species, or they could use their victory to create real change across the galaxy. "Ambassador Silveska," Kane said finally, "humanity is prepared to sign a peace treaty with the Galactic Dominion, but our terms are non-negotiable. The Empire must immediately cease all military action against independence movements. All species requesting self-governance must be granted it within 1 standard year. And humanity reserves the right to provide defensive assistance to any world that requests it." The alien diplomat's silver skin had turned pale during the negotiations. These demands would effectively end the Dominion's ability to maintain its empire through force. But she could see no alternative. "I must consult with the High Command," Silveska said finally. "These terms represent fundamental changes to galactic civilization." "Yes, they do," Kane agreed. "The age of conquest and forced submission is ending. Species that want to be free will be free. Those that choose to remain with the Dominion can do so voluntarily." 6 months later, Admiral Kane stood on the observation deck of the new Earth Embassy ship as it approached the neutral station where the final peace treaty would be signed. Around her, representatives from over 200 newly independent worlds gathered to witness the formal end of the Galactic Empire's reign of conquest. The Dominion still existed, but as a voluntary federation rather than a forced empire. Species that chose to remain with them did so for mutual benefit rather than fear. And humanity had taken its place as one of the galaxy's major powers, respected for both its military strength and its commitment to freedom. Captain Morrison joined Kane at the observation window, watching the stars that now represented a galaxy where worlds could choose their own destinies. "Did you ever imagine it would work out this well?" he asked. Kane smiled, remembering the moment 3 weeks ago when the alien fleet had first appeared in Earth's sky. "I hoped we could defend our world. I never dreamed we would liberate half the galaxy in the process." The treaty signing would be remembered as the beginning of a new age in galactic history, when the right of species to govern themselves became more important than the power of empires to conquer them.